Remember when we were in college? A long time ago now.
It's a long time ago.
It is a long time ago. If it's so long ago, I remember. I just read a thing on the internet that the Beck's album Odelay just turned 25. I was already living in Japan when that came out.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing the display to that album in Tower Records, another thing that's actually gone from the U.S. but is still here in Japan. They still have Tower Records here. They
have a poor selection though. The used shops have more CDs than Tower Records does.
Yeah, I think all the selection is on the internet now. It's all on Amazon or something. You gotta get it from them or somebody else.
Purely streaming. Yeah, I remember because I was of course poor.
In university. Or my CD source, Presto Records. Let's just put it
Presto Records. Yeah. I was still into vinyl heavily when I was in university, and
when I started university, there was only vinyl.
That's right.
CD came in my junior year.
Because you're my senior.
Yeah, a little bit. By a little bit. I have less hair.
When the first friend I made when I was in my dorm and got my stereo set up, I had the window open, and I was playing Cannonball and Coltrane. And a guy had been walking under my window and heard that and came up and pounded on my door. And we proceeded to become friends. And we were playing jazz together. And
he pounded on your door, and what did he do?
He said,
"Did you let him in?"
He said, "Expletive Cannonball Coltrane." What the something? Yeah. And then,
what the other expletive?
Yes, and then we were friends right away, and we had some musical adventures. And I went over to his place, and I met Don Menza, the great tenor sax player who played with Henry Mancini. And and then there was another guy down the hall, and of course he had a CD player before me. He was heavily into classical music too, and so we were listening to Cameretta Byrne orchestra recordings and all these things. So music was a way that I made most of my original friends in university. Yeah.
Yeah, well, mine too. Before I even really played, I eventually I went to university with a guitar, and everybody played the guitar. So I wound up getting a bass, and suddenly I was in every band. So I made most of my friends through music and through my then vinyl collection. Okay, I had a lot of records. I still remember. Some people turning me on to some of the new music that was coming out in the 80s. It was a really exciting time. There was a lot of good stuff.
What I think the difference was, at that time, even listening to music was more of a shared experience.
Right.
You did it with other people at the same time.
Especially, yeah. Not only that, but you would hang around in your dorm room for hours trying to decipher the lyrics to this song or talking about this new album. Was it good? Was it not? It was like the most important thing in the world.
That's right.
And I kind of missed that. I missed it a lot, actually. I think that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah. And
I think we never really...
Come on over and let's listen to this, new recording or something. And it was
you bond over that. Yeah.
It was exciting rather than here's this link and tell me what you think.
Yeah, that's sort of what we do today, Russ.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get together occasionally, but we'll usually be sending each other links. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about on the next podcast.
Yeah.
We'll send the link. We won't really listen to it together anymore.
But listen to something for the first time with friends, that's, it's a great experience,
Yeah, especially then. Especially when it just seems so important. I mean, it's still fairly important to me. It doesn't have the same meaning as it did then, but I do miss the fact that nobody really seems to care at our age anymore. You know what I mean? They kind of have other things to do. I mean, so do I, but music still kind of stuck with me. It's still very important. I've got to hear everything. And it even marks time for me, too. I think one of the reasons I collect so many CDs is so I can remember, this came out this year when I was doing this.
Yeah, that's why I like my CDs, because when I go up on oftentimes I'll just stream them from the my network attached storage, and it's easy. But when I go up to the shelf and pick something, I can pretty much remember where and when I bought every one of them, and sort of transports me back to that place and
right.
that physical connection.
Yeah.
But, whether we have physical connection or not, the sharing aspect is something that is most important. So, that's what I hope we can accomplish here.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned that you were telling me a story about that guy that you met. Who was that?
Don Menza.
Don Menza. Yeah. What was that story?
Well, I'm trying to think. We were going up to Buffalo to see him play with some kind of local family group or something.
This is when? In the 80s?
This would be 1989. And so I was at the dinner table, and Menza realized that he was late, and he said, "I've got to change." And rather than excusing himself to the other room or something, he just changed right at the table. And I think he had some like purple Speedos or something on there, And so I was kind of,
Wait,
shocked.
How old was he at this time?
Oh, I don't know. He must have been, late 40s, early 50s at the time.
And who was at the table? You and your friends?
And family, yeah.
And family too, mom and dad?
Yeah. But wow. He just, switched over to the tuxedo, and that was it. Yeah. So
how about that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my good memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of sharing music, we're about to do that right now.
That's
so
right.
What's this? How are we doing this? Please tell me.
Let me count. This is episode 19.
It's episode 19 of what? Yeah. There you go.
Of adult music, which is
adult music
for the adult mind.
I think it was the what's the word you used? For the mature mind.
The mature
music.
mind.
There's a nice alliteration there. Music for the mature mind.
Adult music for the mature mind. Right. Yeah. And episode 19. And that's excluding our new series of special interview episodes. Yeah. The first of which was released about a week ago.
Mike Ladon. Those are going to come out on Fridays, but not every week. Okay.
Yeah, that was Mike Ladon, the great
Thursday evening, depending on where you live.
Organist and pianist. If you haven't checked that out yet, you should go check that out for his recent release, It's All Your Fault, dedicated to Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Yeah, and he's really interesting.
It's a really good interview. Yeah, he told us so much information. We've got another one coming up soon. And the third one that's actually already done in the wings. So we'll have
we're waiting for the release. Yeah,
a whole interview series that will be running along the regular episodes. And so for all our listeners, I'd like to remind you before we get going with this week's music, which I think is a really nice program of accessible things and a great variety. But if you look in the episode description, you're going to find links to all the Spotify and Apple Music streaming for the music we discuss. Also, at the top of the description is a link to the full episode playlist, all the music in one place, all the music that's available on streaming. Our first one this week, unfortunately, you have to buy if you want to listen to it. But that's on Diese, the service that Mike and I are using and are pretty happy with for classical jazz and everything else for sound quality and variety. But you'll find that list there. You can also listen to our podcast on Diese, and the streaming list of tunes is under Adult Music Podcast. Now, if you can't see that full description on your app or whatever service you're listening to, because the services list the data, some of them are incomplete, you can check us out on our host, Podbean, and just look up adult music there, and all the links are fully active there. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, do please follow or subscribe on whatever app or platform you're listening to us on. And if you take a couple minutes to give us a ranking or write a review, it will help us get listed in the browsing category recommendations. Recently, we've been in the recommendations on Apple, also on our own Podbean. But if we don't get a lot of hits there or feedback, sometimes we drop out of the browse category. And this month we're up in the Amazon podcasts too, which is nice because we really want to grow our audience. And so we'd much appreciate if you take a couple minutes to give us some feedback that way. Now, if you'd like to contact us with direct comment or feedback, please don't hesitate to email us. Our email address is adultmusicpodcast. That's all one word, adultmusicpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and or you can just take a few seconds and just give us a 5-star kind of rating. That would help a lot too, because it helps us in the algorithm. Yeah. And let's face it, I mean, where else are you going to get stories about jazz musicians in purple Speedos? I mean,
I've got a lot more. I've got a lot more stories like that.
Yeah, well, boy, we're gonna have to hear those. I don't really have that many of those. I kind of have one or two, but
stories. And you know what?
Nothing terribly interesting about musicians, though. Okay.
Looking at the stats, what we get back from our listeners. Well, we've got over 1,500 downloads, which is really nice. And most of our audience is in North America and Japan. But number 3, and always growing, is India.
Yeah, very interesting.
It's got us on Geos Savan and what's the other one? Ghana. And so we've got a lot of listeners in India. So
those are places in India that you just said? Or?
No, those are the
other countries?
the podcast apps that are special to
Ghana.
India.
Okay, I know.
So
I do remember
I thought,
okay.
There's 1 billion people in India and they must like music. And so I got on those podcasts specifically. And now we've got a lot of listeners there, but we haven't heard from anyone in India. So listeners in India, send us some feedback. We'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, let us know what you like. I remember there were a lot of, when I was living in Boston, there were a lot of, a friend of mine was an engineer, a guy who played in my band, and he would have parties at his house, and a lot of the people from his office would come, and a lot of them were Indians. They're actually from India, not American born, and they were going to go back there, and they were really into classical music. I was kind of surprised, because at the time I was very young. I didn't know what people listened to or not, but they knew a bit about the repertoire. I was kind of really interested in that.
And I had a great adventure, and I want to go back, but we'd like to hear from Indian listeners too. And also, I'm happy to report that UK listeners, United Kingdom, is also one of the fastest growing groups. So that's a plus too, because I wondered why we hadn't had a lot of downloads from the UK until the end of May or so, but that's growing too. So
I'm really glad to hear that personally, because I buy the majority of my classical music CDs from UK outlets, especially Presto Music. So, support your local UK outlets out there. I love them. They're really helpful and they're great and they have everything. It's fantastic.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, on to this week's music. Where shall we begin?
We're on to the music. Here we go. Well, we always go back in time, and I always try to start with the Baroque era or something around there, whether it's classical Renaissance, but I like the Baroque. I try to wake up every morning to
Baroque is great in the morning.
Play Baroque. Yeah, it is good. In fact, back in the day, and I know there might be one or two of my old workmates listening to this podcast from Boston when I used to work at WBUR, National Public Radio at Boston University. And there was a show on the air then. This is back when they did music. I think they're all news now. But there was a show then called Morning Baroque, and that got me into the habit of listening to Baroque music in the morning. It just really picked up my spirits. Mostly Baroque instrumental music. Baroque vocal music isn't always very cheerful. It really, like most opera, it really tries to hit you in the emotions, kind of make you kind of sad or outraged or whatever. Well, you're never outraged, but there's usually this outrageous situation that the singer is singing about.
The Baroque compositions, the logic and connection sort of aligns my brain waves and makes me ready to function in the morning. I really like it. Yeah,
I wrote a rather on my website. You can actually look at this, michaelvizzuto.com. I wrote on my website something about how Baroque music is kind of why it's so positive. And it was really because at the time, this was the era when, people figured out that, the Earth went around the sun, and Newton kind of came up with the laws of the universe at the time. So it was the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, basically. And, it was more, it's more after the Renaissance, the Baroque era. So the Enlightenment was beginning, the scientific Enlightenment anyway. And it was just a very positive time. People, science seemed to be solving all of the world's problems. And people were very positive. And I think that got into the music. And it really is listening to Baroque instrumental music is a good way to.
Wow. Science was solving problems rather than causing them?
Well, now it's causing them, but back in the day, it was a different story. Machine. Yeah, everything changed with World War II. We kind of the dark side of all that, rationalism kind of caught up with us, and that's we're still living in the aftermath of that, I believe, today. But this was the just like the dawn of the age of reason. People were really. You
mean it was facts over feelings?
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but we've learned that facts over feelings isn't always a good thing. But then again, feelings over facts is rarely a good thing. So I guess we're just screwed either way.
That's right.
We really just can't win. All right, human beings. What we need to do is get to the temple and become like the Buddha, and then that's how I think we're going to solve our problems. Because I don't think the human mind can actually do it. That's just my cynical take on the world. Despite the fact that I'm listening to Baroque music every morning, I still feel like that. Anyway, there we did. We just blew your mind. So now we're gonna play some music for you that's gonna blow your mind. Our first, and this kind of did. Well, it didn't blow my mind, but it did kind of like make some spark go off here. Our first recording this week is the 6 keyboard partitas by Johann Sebastian Bach, one of the great cornerstones of the keyboard repertoire and of Bach's output, played by the Iranian-American harpsichordist Mahan Esfahani, and recorded on the Hyperion label, which means that you can't play it on your streaming site. You got to go to the Hyperion website to sample this.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not on the Diese list, and we don't have any Apple.
You basically have to buy it.
Or Spotify links. You have to buy it. Although I'll put the link up for the Hyperion site where you can sample the tracks.
Right. All right. Well, the 6 partitas, these have been recorded. I have lots of recordings of these too. Surprisingly, not as many as of the sonatas and partitas for solo violin. I think I have like easily more than 10 of those. And this I have about 6 or 7, but most of them are on the piano. And I have maybe this one, and there's the my favorite release of these is by Trevor Pinnock on the Hansler Classic label. Came out in the 2000s, I think around 2006 or so, and that's my favorite harpsichord recording of these works easily. And my favorite piano recording, if you want to know, is by the American pianist Richard Good. Also came out in the I think in the 2000s or so. The aughts, as they call them.
The aughts.
I didn't look this up. I'm just remembering off the top of my head. The years are flying by now, and I can't remember when things happened anymore. But it's just this big, long thing. All right, anyway, we have this new recording, and I'm always happy to hear Mahan Esfahani. You and I kind of bonded over his playing on an older CPE Bach recording. CPE Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, was Johann Sebastian, the great Johann Sebastian's oldest surviving son. There was an older brother that died like 3 weeks after he was born or something, I think. I don't remember. I at the beginning of this podcast, way back in episode 1, I said I was a music scholar, but I'm not doing it now, so I don't really remember anything. But I did know all this stuff at one time. It's in there somewhere. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head. Anyway, we bonded over that because he was one of the few people who got that Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach had a sense of humor.
That's right.
And a lot of it is in the sudden, the bizarre kind of chords he would occasionally use, like in these kind of seemingly straightforward situations, and the constant, slamming on the brakes of the rhythm in his music. And Esfahani got that and kind of played it up a lot. Another harpsichordist who really understood it was Andreas Steyr, who's CPE Bach harpsichord concertos we both really loved back then too, and we became big CPE Bach fans, but it's been kind of hard to find good CPE Bach recordings. Anyway, here we are in the modern day, and Esfahani has released his second release of Johann Sebastian, the great Johann Sebastian's keyboard music. The first was the Toccatas, and this is the 6 partitas. If you're a keyboard player of the Bach suites, you know that the French ones are the easiest, though they're really not easy. Then come the English suites, and then the big demanding ones are the partitas. These are for the higher level players. Okay. Now, I liked Trevor Pinnock's recording of this because it's just he's got a good sense of the joy of Bach's music. Now, the thing about, and he's got some nice effects on his harpsichord. It was just a really beautiful recording and just really sunny and, enjoyable. Now, Esfahani's approach here is very interesting, and I didn't really figure it out until the very end of this recording. Well, if I did, but I just kind of, this is what I thought. It's a 2 CD set, and I guess you can buy an MP3 of it from the Hyperion site too, and I didn't check whether it was in this order. But these go Partita 1, 2, and 6, and then CD2 has Partitas 3, 4, and 5. So they're not in the order that they were written. And I don't know that he wanted this order for a specific reason, although he ends, he's got all the 3 minor ones together. But there's something happens in these that's kind of interesting. So I think they need to be listened to in this order, in the order that they're laid out on the CD. All right, now the first one, Partita number 1, B flat major, he kind of we hear his sound, and one of the things I like about this recording is that it's not, the microphone isn't in the in the harpsichord's lid, like right on top of the strings, picking up like every little squeak in the instrument. It's a little distant, and he gets this, so we don't get this very loud kind of in your face sort of sound. It's kind of a little bit distant, but not really. It still doesn't sound like a concert hall harpsichord. It's kind of chimey.
I thought that this recording is much more dynamic and full than the Württemberg sonatas. I mean, I know it's in different instruments.
You're going for the older recording, the older
compared to that
recording.
One. I was really impressed with the amount of volume that, because like we had said before, if you ever hear a harpsichord in a live performance,
right,
you're going to be really surprised compared to listening to these
if you've never heard a harpsichord before, it's a very quiet instrument.
Yeah.
Everybody's like leaning forward in their chair trying to...
So I thought this was surprisingly full volumed, and I listened on, various systems and then with headphones too, but the level of detail in the recording is quite high. I could actually hear mechanical sounds from the instrument and other things, although there is still enough of a room, natural reverb for the instrument too, but it's quite, fully dynamic in the spectrum of it.
But here's the thing: it starts in a quieter dynamic, and by the end, it's fully opened out. This is kind of the reveal I wanted to make, and you just kind of ruined it for me.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Never mind. That's what we're all about here. Is just you're revealing everything. No, the first one, he gets this nice, beautiful, chimey, like almost music box kind of sound out of this, and there wasn't really much. He doesn't really do much in the first partita to bring out sort of different like sort of textures with the sound he's using. He pretty much sticks to the same sound. And I was thinking, this is going to be a recording where we're going to hear the harmony. Okay, he's really going to focus on the more intellectual side of Bach's music. Okay, and I think he does that in Partita 1. But then, as the other partitas go by, 2, 6, then 3, 4, 5. Other elements are added. So soon he's sort of using the muted sounds or the more open-ended sounds to like highlight certain harmonies at certain times. I remember there was one point in Partita 2 where he just kind of doubled. He just kind of changed not changed register, but changed the. It's a 2-manual keyboard, and I think if you're playing on the top manual, you're only getting like 1 string, and then there are 3 strings on the bottom one, so it's louder, and the texture changes. And he at one point in this, he highlights a certain cadence only with the bottom, using the louder register, and I was kind of, that's pretty interesting. I would, wonder why he's doing that. But so he's highlighting certain elements of the score. Now, I didn't really listen to this like some scholar trying to figure out every bit of it, but I noticed that. Then soon he was starting to use the mutes. He has a lot of gorgeous sounds on this instrument. In fact, we're going to put up a video of him talking about the instrument he's using. It's a 2018 model that he had made for him specifically to play Bach's music, and it's apparently a bit of a monster. It gets a lot of different sounds. just I don't know how. He'll explain a little bit of that to you. And then I was thinking, okay, intellectual. Okay, now he's getting into the the colors and things like that. Then the first thing I think about when I hear the partitas is that they're old Baroque dances, Allemande, Courante, Sarabande. These are all jig. These are all dances, and he wasn't pulling out the dance element. This wasn't a really sprightly kind of rhythmic performance. And as we go, we start hearing in partitas 3 and 4, we start hearing more and more of the mutes, like the plucked, the muted plucked strings. It makes the harpsichord sound a bit like a guitar or like a lute, I guess, that's kind of muted with the fingers. We hear that sound more and more. And then finally, in partita number 5, we get the dancey rhythms. Now, those rhythms exist in all of the partitas, but he just decided to kind of like expose different elements in each one of the partitas. But here's the thing. He doesn't erase any of the elements that he exposed in some of the earlier ones that he played here. It's cumulative. By the end, you're hearing like every effect. By partita 5, you're hearing every effect on the harpsichord. I thought that was a really interesting approach, and I kind of want to hear the whole set again because of that. It was kind of interesting. Because of that, it's kind of a unique recording. I'm going to go to my number 1, but I really did enjoy it. I thought it was kind of intellectually stimulating the way he approached this recital.
Yeah, he's got amazing technique, but it's not just the technique. He has a great flair with, his playing, and I like his attention to detail with the tempos too. Everything seems just about right. I never get the sense that he's going too fast or drawing things out too long. And as I mentioned, compared to the instrument that in the recording on the CPE Bach, I found this one a much fuller sound, but also in depth. I could hear so many things in here, and the recording is so clean. I could actually hear things that I didn't want to hear if I was listening too closely.
I tend to like those things though, because it kind of makes you feel like you're there. Yeah. The squeaks on the guitar neck, things like that.
Yeah, those kind of things.
Those kind of things.
It's like you're kind of right there. The performance is great. As you said, it has that building effect, which he's done by, purposely rearranging, the order. And but after listening to all of them a couple of times, I've found that I'm particularly drawn. I don't know if it's the harpsichord sound or these particular pieces, but I really like the minor key partitas better. So 2 and 6 are my favorites, and those I've found, in both, Bach's compositions and then his interpretation. Those are really, really great, and they really bring out all the things that harpsichord can do best with a composition. And those two are really. I listened to those. I listened to the whole album about 3 times, and then I listened to those.
Wow, I didn't listen to that
extra
much.
Couple times, so I like those a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I like those too. I suspect he didn't want to end on the minor key one. This the 6th one is in a minor key,
right? Yeah,
and
so
it sounded like he.
Yeah,
the partitas 4 and 5 are both major, and I like the thing I like about these in a sort of meta level is the way he arranges is the emerging from the darkness into the light sort of quality that you get from a minor key work to a major key work. This happens naturally in the sonatas and partitas for solo violin, which we talked about. Was it 2 weeks ago now? I don't remember. Maybe it was last week. I don't know. But that happens naturally in those because Bach has arranged the works like that. But these works weren't written. Oh, they were written at about the same time, but they weren't supposed to be like a set. I don't think they have different catalog numbers too. But I like that moment when you get into the major key again and you're in the light and you already have all this kind of like cerebral stuff behind you, and now you're kind of like dancing around, sort of. It's a nice recording. I like his sound a lot. It's kind of a chimey sound, as I said, but then he on disc 2 he's starting to sort of give us more different dynamics and can I say timbres? Man, I gotta oil this chair or something. Speaking of squeaking things,
tune up your chair, man.
Tune up my chair. Yeah, so I thought this was really enjoyable, and it kind of when I figured out like, oh, at the end when Partita 5, where you're hearing like really all the sounds that his instrument can make, it kind of like suddenly, and the dance rhythms, it sort of like dawned on me, oh wow, this has been a cumulative experience. I wasn't even aware of it when it was happening. Now you go back, you listen to it again, you realize it's a pleasure all over again, and new discoveries to be made. Recommended.
Yeah, if you like harpsichord even mildly, you're going to enjoy this one. He really digs in and makes the harpsichord dynamic. In his other recordings, I have a couple other ones, including that CPE Bach. And, this is the great thing for, a weekend morning or weekday, or if you have to work at the computer and you want to put on something that's going to, be energetic, Baroque to align the brain waves. This harpsichord is dynamic and good technique and a wonderful sound all around. And
that's the Bach Partitas. You can't go wrong.
Bach. And cheers to Hyperion. After I think I said something bad about one of their recordings
just recently, just last week, I think it was.
Last
right?
week I was disappointed, but this one sounds spot on. So.
Well, you didn't like the that piano one.
Oh yeah,
Vlad. What I forgot the name. God, is the Bulgarian composer.
Yeah, I love that
you
recording.
Thought it was veiled,
but they forgot to open up the curtains on the recording or something.
Yeah, I claimed it was the actual sound that the music made, but I don't know. I can't really tell.
Yeah, nothing like that on this one though. This one sounds great. Yeah,
this is great, and it's kind of a little bit of a nice brain surprise. I would give it a listen. It's good. All right. Good work, Hyperion and Mahan Esfahani. A really enjoyable recording. By the way, if we ever interview a harpsichordist, is it going to be unprofessional if we ask him if he's ever played the Addams Family theme, like at a concert?
He's done it. We just have to make him admit it. Just have to make him admit it. Yeah.
I wonder if they ever come out and do that as an encore. I've never heard that done, but
I don't know.
Maybe I've heard jazz musicians do it, but not on a harpsichord, obviously. Yeah.
One of these younger millennial players will have done it just to cut out all the pretentiousness.
Some idiot stands up at the concert and, hey, play the Addams Family. You have the whole audience snapping along.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Maybe it would kind of loosen people up a bit.
That's right.
Classical audiences can be stuffy.
They sure can.
Although I don't remember because I haven't been to a classical concert in years now.
In a while now.
Because of this coronavirus thing. I don't know. All right. On to the next recording. And I have to tell you, this is a composer I've always really tried to get into with minor success, but there's a lot more music by him coming out now, and I'm starting to like these new performances. Maybe it's because of my age and my experience now. But this is the Greek composer. Man. Yeah, it's all Greek to you. Well, it was all Greek to me, but not anymore.
Not anymore.
because it's I like these recordings. This is the Greek composer Nikos Skalkottas. I hope I'm saying that right. Nikos Skalkottas. And this is the second release in a series that's coming out on the Naxos label. This particular release is called Dance of the Waves. And that refers to a movement in his folk ballet, The Sea. Okay, there are 3 excerpts from that included on this recording. It also features the first series of 36 Greek dances, which he has orchestrated.
It's a lot of dances.
It's a lot of, but we only hear 12 of them here. There are 3 suites.
That's right.
Of 12 each. Can you imagine if you had, this is something that classical CDs or releases do. Like, the 36 Greek dances, Nikos Skalkottas. You're not going to listen to all of these. It's going to be too much.
36 would be a lot of dances, yeah.
Yeah, especially with the way they go. They're kind of, they're sort of like orchestrated the same way, say, the Dvorak Slavonic dances.
Yeah, they're short, less than 3 minutes like each.
Hungarian dances are. Yeah, they all have that punctuation with the bass drum and the cymbals constantly coming in. It's a feature of this kind of music and orchestration, but it's really too much. Shall we say too much of a good thing? I don't know.
Yeah, well, here it's just right. I think splitting these up is a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. They're actually easier to kind of get through. Okay, let's just start talking about the music because I don't need to list all the tracks. So this album starts out with the 36 Greek Dances Series 1. Now, what these are, this is pretty interesting. They're different types. Some of them are actual Greek folk melodies. Some of them are melodies that are based on Greek folk melodies that he composed by himself. And so he's kind of echoing that. And other ones are sort of like arrangements of like Greek sounding melodies that he sort of like Bartók did with Hungarian music and the music from that region, Romanian and all of that. So we get a combination of all of that here. These are from earlier in his. Actually, are they? When did these? 1930. These are late. Okay, these are fairly late. Okay, so he had already studied with Schoenberg at this point, and so he was collecting this. So he's kind of like he's not a combination of Schoenberg and Bartók. He's really his own man, but he kind of is sometimes in Bartók mode and sometimes in Schoenberg mode. The way he
as you
composes.
See later in the recording.
Yeah, and here he's in Bartók mode where he's collecting and creating these Greek folk sounding melodies and orchestrating them.
Well, I enjoyed these a lot. The melodies are great, but not only that, the orchestration, what he's done with assigning the sounds and parts of the melodies is really wonderful. He's using the full orchestra. There's lots of great brass parts. All the sections get used really to great effect here, and they're short. And having them first in the program, and then, as you said, you can't do all 36 if he has that many on one disc.
He did. Yeah, but they're in 3 suites. We're going to hear more later.
As just 12 short selections, there's enough variety in the types of melodies, and his orchestration is a lot of fun. And they're very accessible. Anyone could listen to these and enjoy them. And I found them, really nice. Makes me want to. I've been to Greece twice. I wanted to go back again right away.
I'm like that too. I really liked it there too. I haven't been there since the 2000s. I really do want to go back. I loved it. I really loved it. And these dances kind of reminded me of that. I got to see an actual Greek folk dance when I was there, where they dance in a circle. It was really cool. It's like,
it's very really attractive arrangements. Using the melodies, I mean, they sound, as far as I can understand, they sound Greek. As you mentioned, I didn't know that there was various inspirations for them, but certainly
there's a lot of variety here.
In the melodies have variety, and then you'll enjoy what he does using the full orchestra and the different colors and things with them. So they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I should mention, by the way, this is recorded by the Athens State Orchestra, conducted by Stefanos Tsialis. Now, Skalkottas, he wasn't known as a composer in his lifetime. His work, he only got about 3 works, performed while he was alive, and he died very young. He was, he was only like 46? Ooh. 45. Or 46. I don't know exactly when he died, but 1904 to 1949. And he died of, he had some disease. I wonder if it says here. I remember reading about this, but I didn't. I guess not. Anyway, I'll look it up later. But, so he was a violinist in this orchestra. He was one of the founding members. He was one of the, he played in it from its founding until the day he died. He's really kind of sort of like being like on a sport, one of the first members of a sports team or something like that. So the Athens State Orchestra now is releasing all of these recordings on Naxos to kind of commemorate him.
It's very nice
as one of their compatriots. And it's not only is it nice, it's great for us because it's good to have these recordings available to us, because these are really good performances, as we said, and these are interesting works. Okay, next. After 12 of the 36 Greek folk dances, Suite 1, we get segments of a folk ballet, the C, which has never been performed before in its entirety.
This is really befuddling because you get like movements 4 and 7, and
is it?
What's the other one? It's incomplete. So you wonder what the rest of them must sound like, right?
Yeah, this ballet. It's a ballet, and it's never been performed. So dance companies, here's something for you to tackle. I wouldn't mind seeing this myself.
Yeah.
So sounds like it might be interesting. Anyway, we get 3 segments from this ballet. It's called the ballet is called the Sea. The first movement is called the Trawler, and this is apparently kind of a bit of a. It's got folk-like themes to it. I get it's got kind of a wistful feeling to it. I think it's supposed to be like a sailor, on the boat, kind of like looking at the stars or something like that, or looking out to the waves. Yeah,
brooding low string swells that are supposed to evoke the sea images.
Right.
But it has also a lot of nice brass parts in it too. And
I knew you were going to mention the brass parts. Yeah, there are good brass parts in the Greek dances too.
Yeah.
And he's like any good 20th century composer. He features the brass quite a lot. Okay, and the second movement is called Nocturne, a little calmer than the Trawler.
Right.
The first movement.
Very pretty harmonies in this one.
Yeah, pretty harmonies. And the third movement is Dance of the Waves, which sounds kind of happy, but it's supposed to depict a storm at sea, and I guess the swelling of the waves during that storm.
What I liked about this is, this is just my interpretation, but the tumbling strings, there's sort of these descending string lines. Those represent, sort of the waves. And then against that, there's sort of a march played in the wind instruments, both the brass and the woodwinds. And so you have these kind of two things going against each other. And then in the middle, it becomes slower and in a sort of broader theme. And then it returns to that, dueling dynamic at the end. So I thought, this one was a lot of fun in this movement, to Dance of the Waves.
Yeah, also highly listenable, very immediately appealing.
Yes.
It's, the melodies are kind of, the melodies are fairly like pentatonic, I guess, like a folk song would be. Yeah, folk-like melody. So also very appealing. And then we get the broccoli after the
the artichoke.
The
artichoke and anchovies at the
But
end.
If you're Italian, you love artichokes, so there you go.
I like them too.
All right, this next piece is Suite Number 1. This is a pretty famous piece for large orchestra. Now he recorded this after he finished studying with Schoenberg in 1929. So he had learned the 12-tone technique of Schoenberg. Now, this isn't a serial piece. Serial means like you've got the 12 tones and they all have to repeat in that order for the rest of the piece. I always wonder how you're supposed to listen to those, because I'm kind of... are you supposed to remember how the pattern goes?
Yeah.
I could never really follow it. And I didn't study this in school, though, but,
This one is a lot, it's obviously much more modern sounding, and there's a lot of different tonality. It's not 12-tone, as you say, but the tonalities change on a whim. And
it's not serial, but it is 12-tone.
12-tone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dissonance. So it's not easy listening. However...
It's not unappealing.
No, there's a lot happening that's very interesting, and so it does draw you in. So if you like 20th century pieces, modern kind of pieces, I think this will be something worth checking out, and because there's a lot of interesting things going on. And what I feel, even compared with the more accessible earlier pieces on this recording, his use of all of the different instruments in the orchestra is quite appealing. And so again, here you get a lot of nice brass interludes too, and he's using difficult harmonies, but also mixed with lots of fun tonalities and rhythmic variations. And so it sort of holds your attention and draws you in, even if it's not particularly melodic like the other pieces.
It's not melodic, and it's not like you're going to be following these hierarchies of keys. That was all gone. So you had to find something else to engage the listener's attention, which he does. Yes. And he does it through like the various combinations of timbres. And also by making this a suite, which means it's going to have... Well, they're not dances. He's going more for like rhythms or song types. One of the things I love about modernist pieces of the 20th century is, like, for example, if this is going to be a 12-tone piece, you can't start it quietly. It almost has to be this brash, harsh-sounding chord, which is exactly what we get here right away. It's like he has to signal to you, okay, fasten your seatbelts. This is what you're going to hear. So you hear that first. And I remember a friend of mine who really loved this kind of music, and he was in the other room when I was listening to Mozart, and put something like this on, and he heard this big kind of dissonant chord. He just came running into the room all excited. It's like, what was that? That was amazing, you know? You know, so it kind of reminds me of people like that, you know. So I kind of got to like it because they were so enthusiastic about it that I sort of, you know, got involved. But this is really interesting.
It's about as appealing as possible for this type of, you know, structure and approach. Yeah, I feel like he was able to, you know, adapt what he had done previously to this, you know, this sort of new idiom and bring in the appealing nature of things that he had, you know, worked on with instrumentation and structure from, you know, his previous experience. So I was really impressed with that because there's so many recordings of, or, you know, compositions of the same era that I find completely unappealing in any way. And
well, especially after the Second World War.
Yeah.
You know.
And this one, which I've never heard before, even on first listening, I was like, this is, you know, completely listenable and interesting to me, you know, considering what it is. So, yeah.
So I just want to say, I enjoyed this recording so much that I traded in the Knob Creek bourbon for some Metaxa tonight. So I got the Metaxa going.
All right. You know, visions of Greek gods await your sleep.
Yes, they do in my sleep. Okay. Like you, I've had many experiences with Metaxa, both good and bad.
Yes. I had a horrible one with my brother-in-law.
Oh, really?
Which I think I still have some. Oh, ouch. Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, that's long behind me now. Yeah.
Still have some some actually physical memories of that time.
Physical, yeah.
Dead physical reminders.
Brain cells, yes.
Sorry to hear that. Anyway, I want to say, pick this one up, and I would also recommend the previous recording in this series, also by the Athens State Orchestra, which is called the Neoclassical Skalkottas, which is doesn't have any of his like more 12-tone harsher works. It's all kind of highly listenable. That came out, I believe, in 2020, but I'm not sure. Anyway, both of those would be highly recommended.
Yeah,
so.
Nice sound quality on here, Naxos. Good job. And,
good job.
Athens
State
by the
Orchestra and Stefanos Tsialis too.
Next time I'm in Greece, if I can catch a performance, I would be happy to do that. It's a fine sounding orchestra.
I'd be happy to do just about anything in Greece, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Our last classical selection for this week is by the guitarist Miloš Karadaglić. All right. Now, Miloš, he goes by the name of Miloš, and if you look at the album cover, we should have talked about the Bach album cover too, which is this severe close-up of a like 17th century. It looks like a metal sculpture. I'm not really sure what it is.
It's kind of a scary album cover. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of. I thought it was a death mess, but it's not. It's actually some kind of work of art that's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Go figure. Okay, but anyway, that's that. That is a weird album cover, and Esfahani seems to be releasing all of his Bach recordings.
His other albums covers are kind of strange too. Yeah.
For Hyperion, yeah, he seems to have this kind of theme going. Anyway, Miloš, this album cover has him looking like an elf here, sitting on a branch of a tree with his guitar, looking out to the to our left as we look at him with his perfectly sculpted face and absolutely perfect hair. He can't possibly be this unblemished. This has to be an airbrushed photo. He also looks a little pale here. It looks like he's probably got a lot of blue moonlight on him because the name of this album is The Moon and the Forest. All right, now Miloš, I'll refer to him as Miloš because that's the way he's being advertised. Miloš Karadaglić is his name. He's a virtuoso guitarist. He's kind of he's really being in a really crowded field of guitarists. He's kind of like emerging as a star, and some of that is because of his the way he's being kind of groomed by Decca Records, one of the big major classical music labels. This very staged looking album cover. Okay, it's meant to appeal to the non-classical listener, I think. You shouldn't let that put you off though, because he really is a top-rate player. Okay, they're going for the widest audience possible here. He's played the famous Rodrigo Concerto de Aranjuez and other solo guitar albums. This one is 2 commissions. It's 2 concertos by contemporary composers, Joby Talbot, who is a British composer, and Howard Shore, Canadian composer, who you might know from his film scores. He writes a lot of film scores. He's a very busy man. I'm sure you've heard them. But here he also is a composer for like orchestra as well. All right, so
he's done Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Did he do Lord of the Rings?
The Hobbit, and more recently, Pieces of a Woman. Yeah, so
I have a big issue with the Lord of the Rings kind of the music for that, because Aragorn's theme goes like da 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 da, and I think he lifted that directly from Sibelius's Third Symphony. There's one moment where the music stops and it gives you that heroic theme, and then you never hear it again. And as Aragorn's theme, he just keeps repeating that theme. At least that's what I think he did. But anyway, I was kind of happy to hear him here. I like him more as his own composer. Now, well, before we get to that, let's just go through this program. So Miloš wants to introduce us to some new music. He wants to create some new music for guitarists to play now and in the future, because he feels like the guitar repertoire isn't as large as, as large as, say, the violin or piano repertoire, and it really should be. The guitar is a funny instrument, because when you think of classical music, who do you think about? Beethoven, Mozart, Brahms, whatever. But if you know classical guitar, like none of these people wrote for the guitar. The guitar repertoire, the greats in the guitar repertoire are completely different people who didn't write for any other instrument. It's really interesting. It's almost like a separate field, but which drew me to it, because it was like, oh, new music. I get to hear something I wouldn't hear. Anyway, here we have Joby Talbot's work, Ink Dark Moon, composed for Miloš. Talbot was born in 1971, so he's kind of around our age. He's old. He's younger than me.
Gen Xer.
He's a Gen Xer. And this is a concerto for guitar and orchestra. The title, Ink Dark Moon, comes from a set of medieval Japanese poems. But I think it's just a title. There doesn't seem to be anything Japanese about this work at all.
Pieces,
yeah,
it's more Spanish influenced, and this one particularly.
Yeah, so is the Howard Shore, and I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. Yeah, but at least I think so. All right, so this piece is kind of when you get to a new piece, you really never know what to expect, and what he's doing here sounds to be fairly. Okay, both of these work, well, there are 2 other short works too, but the 2 concertos on this recording are easy on the ear. There's nothing challenging.
These are easy listening.
Meant to be appealing.
Yes, meant to be appealing.
Now, please, Russ just said easy listening. This doesn't mean relaxing, although I guess it could be.
Well,
but
what I mean
there is a lot of activity.
Yeah,
okay?
No bad meaning in that. What I mean is, like, I think anyone, even not usual classical music listeners, will be able to, fully enjoy these works. They're both really accessible rather than easy listening.
Yeah, they're accessible. They're not really challenging for the mind either, although there is stuff that you could latch on to really enjoy. And one of the things is the intricate orchestration in Talbot's work, Ink Dark Moon. The guitarist is playing. He's got a lot of fantastic virtuoso lines and melodies in this, and he's playing over these sort of repeating rhythms that sort of don't develop. They're almost like this little block. I kind of think of them as Lego blocks, and then like the next one comes, and then the next one comes, and they're all sort of different. Like one section doesn't necessarily, well, maybe it does, but it didn't sound like they linked together to me, but that they went in any kind of logical fashion, but they just kind of linked together to make all this piece. I kind of thought of like the kind of like repeated sort of rhythms of say Philip Glass's early music, except that it's not like changing slowly over time here. Or maybe John Adams,
Of the 2, the Ink Dark Moon I liked better. Yeah. Because of the integration of the orchestrations. So guitar is a tricky kind of instrument to integrate with orchestra, because it can be overwhelmed by the orchestra. Exactly. But here, I really felt that the orchestrations never overwhelm the guitar, but they complement and accent what has been written for the guitar and don't get in the way of what's going on, which I think is probably a rather difficult task, for the composer. The overall mood is very dreamy with lots of contrasts, but it's accessible melodically and harmonically. But I felt that a lot of effort was put into the compositions to highlight the guitar and have the orchestra, bring out the various high points and accenting what the guitar was doing and adding to that, with what the various instruments could do without ever getting in the way of it. And in the forest, I felt that sort of
this is the Howard Shore work now. This is the second concerto on the
second
disc.
Concerto. It's very much more cinematic.
It is
behind the guitar. And I really liked the guitar parts in that one as well, but I felt sort of more the orchestra was much more of a backdrop to the guitar rather than in the Ink Dark Moon, where I felt the integration of the guitar and orchestra was at a much higher level.
I think they're integrated rhythmically in that piece. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Also, what made the Talbot work so interesting was the orchestra is really big, which is a little unusual for like a work with guitar. Yeah. And one of the things they do for this particular work when they did it at the Proms when it premiered is they had like really high level speakers for the guitar, like embedded in the orchestra so that you could hear the guitar at an even level with the orchestra. What Talbot said about this piece is she wanted the orchestra to kind of act like the sounding board for the guitar. The guitar would play and the orchestra would be sort of like, I guess, the inside of the guitar or something like that. I don't know. But it comes out, it's a pretty intriguing piece. It's got all these kind of these rhythms that, are, kind of repeat, and then change. It's kind of cool. I liked it.
Yeah, I think, I played this for a couple other people that were around during the week, and they're, everyone was sort of drawn into it without knowing
I
what
imagine
it was.
They would be.
So,
Yeah, immediately appealing, as is the Howard Shore. It's very Shore. My New York is coming out. Shore.
Of course
Howard
it is.
Shore.
How could you go wrong?
Right. Okay. Howard
You're
Shore.
gonna like it.
All right. This piece is called The Forest, and it's in 3 movements. They're supposed to represent 3 seasons, and then he says something like the orchestra is the 4th season. He doesn't specify which seasons they are. The 3 movements are called Movement 1, Movement 2, Movement 3. This particular piece, what did I say about this? I actually had to write some. I'm really going by what I remember this week, but this one I had to write something down for, so I was afraid I wouldn't remember it, which might say something about it, about this this work. It has this quiet, mysterious opening and nice orchestration. Yeah, there is something cinematic about it. Shore does write for the cinema, and this is sort of a tradition that Eric Korngold started way back in the 1930s, and somehow composers for the cinema never lost that like big boned, sort of very American sounding,
sweeping grandeur.
Like every scene you're looking at is the Death Valley or something, the
Grand Canyon,
the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
All right, but he's got some really beautiful, like little shimmering orchestrational.
The guitar parts are great
in this
too.
part, and the guitar parts are really great in this. Yeah, yeah. I wrote big bone movie territory here. Okay. There are a lot of Spanish sounding elements in this piece, but apparently they're not Spanish. They're Montenegrin. Although I can't believe that, because in the 3rd movement we hear castanets too, and those are really, as far as I know, specifically Spanish. And I read his little note for the piece, and he doesn't mention Spanish influence anywhere. And Miloš in his note says something about the Montenegrin, kind of themes that he gave him, just so he would feel like it was his piece. Apparently, though, speaking of Spanish music, the piece does quote Rodrigo's Concerto de Aranjuez at one point, which I couldn't work out where it was. I guess I'm going to have to listen to it a few more times. But there is a very Spanish influence to this, too, as there is with Ink Dark Moon as well.
Oh, yeah, right from the start, right from the very first, guitar phrases.
Yeah, I guess the guitar, we think of it as a Spanish instrument. It's certainly...
Well, it's the biggest influence, I think. As you said, the composers for guitar are completely different realm than other instruments. So that influence weighs heavy.
they almost have a completely different culture as well. It's really interesting. All right, now there are 2 other works on this recording, and both of them are for solo guitar. There's the one movement, Full Moon, by Ludovico Einaudi, who is an Italian composer who's very, very popular in Italy. Now, I'm going to recommend. I didn't, this was nice. It's pretty, but the thing about Einaudi's music, I've heard quite a bit. This is a transcription of something that was on one of his albums, and he'll have usually there's some chamber group playing these very short 3-minute, almost pop length kind of instrumental works. And this was nice, but I don't know. I kind of feel like his he's writing for the people, I guess. His harmony isn't really challenging enough. It's very kind of.
I thought these two other pieces were mainly just fillers. One, to be a transition between the two.
Yeah, but I want to say, if you want to hear something by Einaudi that I really liked, there's an album called Stanze, which means rooms, played by Cecilia Shai on the electric harp, and it's really, really beautiful. Again, very simple harmonies, but this one came off really, really well. So this piece, I thought was just, it was okay. It was pretty in a kind of anodyne way. Now, the other piece, though, this isn't really just a throwaway piece. This is Robert Schumann's Träumerei from Kinderscenen, the scenes from childhood, which every piano student learns at one point. It's one of those pieces that you learn as a child that you never stop playing until the day you die, and concert pianists play it too. It's easy enough for a child to play, but it's got enough kind of sort of feeling or kind of meaning in it that an adult is always going to find new things. So, and he plays it in a guitar transcription here, and it works exceptionally well. I thought this was a really beautiful, sensitive performance of this piece. If you're curious of hearing what this sounds like in a guitar timbre, definitely check it out. I liked it. It was a nice send off for the end. It's the last work on the album, and I thought it was a nice send off. And there you go. That's your classical music for this week.
Yeah, I like this one a lot, especially. Well,
it's good to play for friends, as you said.
Yeah, Miloš's guitar. He always his technique is great. I mean, it sounds effortless, but also, I'm sure it's a lot of the way he plays, but also the way that it's well captured here by Decca. It's a really huge, warm sound, which would be necessary if you're going to do this with a big orchestra, and they capture that really well, and so that you never get a feeling that it's being overpowered by the orchestra. Of course, the composers, do well to consider the volume of the guitar in their arrangements, but also in the way that it's recorded, and then in the production, that guitar sound comes through. It's not only that it's volume matched to the orchestra, but the warmth and the fullness of the guitar and his particular, unique tone comes through very well. So that production value is really well done, and the overall balance is excellent. And
he has a beautiful tone. This guitar is very, he's easy to listen to.
I think Decca's got a winner here. They've got this sort of appealing guitarist with a lot of talent, and he's also got the looks to match as an artist. And now they've got these composers who have composed for him with this very attractive music as well, and it's recorded just right, and the mix is well done, and the overall effect is a winning package. And I was just reading a piece, by the way, about how some critic was saying that this orchestra needs to program more new music, and the reason why you don't get like programs of all new music is because nobody comes to hear them. They want to hear Beethoven, right? So the real trick is you got to program Beethoven and then put the new piece. You end with Beethoven because you don't want people to hear the Beethoven and then leave before the new piece comes. So you got to put the new piece like third, and then like the piece everybody wants to hear last, so that they'll stay. And but I just want to say, like, people will come to hear a guitarist like Miloš because he's rather famous, and he's well, and so him playing new music like this will draw a crowd. It's really good when you get stars like this. And this is, this approach here, the program, the presentation, if you're going to draw people to classical music, I think this is like spot on, really good program performance and packaging. If any approach is going to do it, this is the one that's going to draw people in. Well,
maybe. We'll see. So people like me kind of would see the album cover like this. I'm like, I just want something more arty. But then again, I'm a total snob, so.
I think it's going to have broad appeal.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it does have broad appeal. It's good. Yeah, anyway,
good recording.
There you
Very
go.
Nice. Okay. Well, moving on to this week's jazz selections. Then we've got up first a Cuban-born pianist, Manuel Valera.
Yeah, I liked this one a lot.
Yeah, this is live at, let me see if I can say this correctly, live at Diese, Onze, which is, I don't know what it means, I guess the 11 or something like that in French.
It's the name of the club. I'm trying to open my Diese to see the name of this album.
It's the name of
it's just taking too long.
The club that's in
I guess Diese Onze, yeah.
Diese Onze, in Montreal, Canada. This was actually recorded.
That's really not French. It's like Diese. I don't know what Diese is. It looks like German to me. I don't know. Anyway, what's the name of the club? Anyway,
it's the name of the club in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This is pre-COVID recording in 2019, but it was just released this year. And Valera, as I said, was born in Cuba, 1980, but he's been in New York City for the last 20 years or so, where he attended the New School University, a famous jazz and modern music place. And he's influenced by Bill Evans, Chick Corea, Keith Jarrett, and he's worked with a lot of famous musicians, including Latin musicians Arturo Sandoval, Paquito de Rivera, also the trumpeter Brian Lynch, drummer Jeff Tain Watts, and others. So he's got an impressive resume, and he's here at this live date with a trio: Hans Glauisching bass and Clarence Penn on drums. Yeah. And this album features a mix of not standards. Well, there's a few standards.
Well, there are a few,
originals by
standards.
Other jazz musicians, and then I think a couple of his original tunes. I don't have the documentation so much because it's a little bit obscure in the notes that's available here.
The standards he chose, I want to say, are just among some of my favorites to hear. So I was kind of really happy about this album.
So it starts off with the Thelonious Monk tune, Rhythm and Ing. Yeah. And we get off to a start. After the opening riff, they keep it really sparse with some really kind of monkish type lines. But then Valera really bursts out in some fast lines, showing a different kind of thing. And you get a couple of different shifts. It goes into a really heavy swing, and then there's a kind of tempo break. And then they go into a really blazing tempo for the piano solo. And so he shows here a really kind of amazing technique that he possesses, and also some really monk-like chord ideas. So you get a sense of, his foundations, but also what his current thing is. And there's also a really rollicking drum solo in this first piece.
Yeah, this is a really excitable recording in general. I just want to say, you said that he had a Bill Evans influence. I didn't really hear any of that.
No, I didn't notice it at all.
He's I could hear Chick Corea maybe and Keith Jarrett, but the thing is, I think the thing that really is his main influence seems to be just the Cuban culture he grew up in. Not that this music sounds particularly
it's not like Latin influence so much, but
it has that kind of energy. This guy, this group has like nonstop energy throughout this entire. He has
the Latin energy, although this is not particularly Latin.
Although
pieces,
it's not like a Latin kind of recording, sort of. Yeah.
And the tune number 2 is "Whisper Not,"
beautiful song
by Benny Golson, which has been recorded a lot. And the piano opening comes in with the familiar minor melody at a nice medium swing. The drummer on this whole recording does some kind of interesting things with coming in and going out, But
there's a lot of solos as well. More than
the drums
usual.
come in kind of later after dropping out for a bit. Once the tune gets kind of chugging along, Valera here mixes. He can play these very clearly defined single notes with a nice touch. So he shows that he has a real commanding touch. But then he'll also throw in some really speedy runs. And later, as the tune gets going along, if you know this melody, he sort of changes the harmonies at whim to where he's going to go with the melody. So he shows that sort of dexterity too, and some really complicated two-hand figures and chord things to keep mixing it up before he brings it back down to the melody again after his solo. So, he shows a lot of what he's capable of on this tune. Tune 3 is Tres Palabras, which I believe is an old tune from the 1940s by Osvaldo Vares. It's been recorded by lots of singers and jazz musicians and Latin music players over
Did you
the
know
years.
this tune? Was it a popular tune first before?
I don't know really the history of it. I just know that it's been recorded by a lot of people. It's kind of a ballad.
Were you familiar with
it? No, I've seen a couple versions of singers doing it and things. It's got a slow piano start, and he reworks the harmony a bit before the drums and bass come in. And it's got a nice kind of relaxed, free tempo. And Valera stays kind of melodic and pretty here. And the drummer, interestingly, doesn't hardly use his cymbals at all. And so there's, just sort of an added lower range percussion, but no sort of tinkling in here. There's a nice, deep, woody bass solo. And then Valera brings back the melody more gently to the end. So we've got at least one sort of Spanish tune sort of leaning on this one. Number 4 is Evidence. I'm not sure about this tune. I'm assuming it's an original because I don't think I've heard it before. It has a very busy rhythmic figure in the piano opening and then charges right away into a bass solo. And then the piano comes back in over this really angular bass figure. And he builds into a really charging piano solo here, lots of two-handed rhythmic figures, and really fueled by the drummer who seems to have found the cymbals again after the previous track. So he really comes in, feeds there. And then the piano solo comes down at the end quietly into a drum solo, and then sort of back into the complex intro idea, and then out. So there's no documentation that I could find on this one, but I think it's just one of his original ones, as is track 5, called simply Ballad. And
this is pretty.
Yeah,
I think this is probably his original, I would think.
I think it is original, yeah. It's a mysterious theme. And just as it gets going, you get a nice clinking of glasses at the bar, which is a feature.
Oh, right. That happens in track 8, Searching, I think, too. There's like this, you hear one of the wait staff kind of clinking all these glasses on a tray together.
Smashed together.
Yeah, there's a live recording, needless to say.
It's a live recording, so that stuff happens. So it's there. After this sort of mysterious beginning, this track gets a more steady beat with a nice pulsating or a pulsing bass line. And it changes a lot rhythmically in the piano solo phrasing. Then it opens up more, and he brings in a sort of syncopated left hand that drives it, and it gets developed in a lot of ways. It's almost it's 7.5 minutes long, so he can really stretch out and develop the tune. So this is a very attractive original number. 6 is the old Gershwin tune, But Not For Me. Interesting reharmonization of the melody in the piano intro. And then he gets into a swinging of the standard tune, but he alternates it with reharmonized passages. So it gets into the piano solo, which is bouncy and keeps building with a lot of runs. There's some choppy chords and bluesy figures. The end is the solo with some nice syncopated chord punches before returning to the melody. So he takes some liberties with this quite famous tune, and I'm sure he thought most people will recognize. Track 7, Darn That Dream, Jimmy Van Heusen. with lyrics by Eddie DeLange going back to 1939. And another interesting reharmonization of the melody. It had a brisk swing and some nicely placed breaks in the melody. Then the piano solo goes off on some more fast runs, and he likes to use these kind of chord blocks here. And the drums are in a quieter mode on this track here. And then when he gets into his solo, you get the two sort of aspects of his personality. He can really swing like, in a traditional swing mode, but then he can sort of switch to a real modern style of playing. And he does both in this track well. And there's some really blazing 16th note figures here that show off his technique. And when they come back to the melody, they trade off with the drums a bit at the end as they go out. So interesting treatment of this standard. Number 8 is Searching. I believe this is a cover of a Roy Ayers, the vibraphonist, did some sort of kind of funky jazz tunes. I think this is a cover of it, but they have their own arrangement, and it really starts out kind of like a spy theme. It's like a spy theme bass with this low piano opening, kind of mysterious. And it develops over that bass figure a bit with some bluesy piano, and quiets down at the end of that for a bass solo where the piano keeps the riff going in the left hand, and then comes back for a piano solo that builds over that kind of funky beat. And Valera expands the harmonies in that idea with some fast runs and rolling chords. And then we close out the set with the Cole Porter tune, What Is This Thing Called Love, which is done in a kind of unique arrangement. There's some descending dissonant piano figure with a kind of rhythmic left hand that gets picked up by the bass as the drums come in, and it keeps repeating. And you may not recognize this tune. I mean, it's a very famous jazz standard, but well into this intro, you may still not get it yet. And finally, Valera brings out the melody for a bit, but improvises heavily on it right from the beginning. Then it gets really swinging and intense in his solo, and the drum solo comes in, and they bring it over that rhythmic figure, which is doubled in the piano and the bass. And then it's back to the melody with the kind of rhythmic piano excursion before the end. It's a fun recording. It's a pretty good sound for a live album, although there is some crowd noise, which is generally recordable. There's the bottles and glasses here.
Kind of giving you the feeling that you're there,
The only thing, I thought the balance of the instruments is quite good for a live recording. The piano sounds a bit dull for my taste. It's lacking a bit of brightness, which would help it cut through more. It could just be the room sound or the microphone positioning. It's not that the piano's not loud enough. I just would like some more of the harmonics in the higher end on it. But, not bad. As far as the musicianship, I mean, if you haven't heard Valera yet, you should check him out. He shows tons of technique, very creative arrangements, and that he can do a nice mix of, swinging piano style, but also really modern kind of improvisations and takes on tunes. With his own compositions here included. And, he has huge chops here. And I think he can do, a lot of things in the future we should be waiting to listen to.
Yeah, I personally thought that this whole concert, it just had this kind of electric kind of energy to it. It was really compelling in that way. It just sounded like kind of high energy and really positive. I liked that about it.
Yeah.
I think the ensemble playing was great. It wasn't really a mellow night out. Let's just say that.
No. Yeah, there's a good energy here. And what I've seen his name, and I think I've listened to a few recordings with him added, but, since he is Cuban and he's played with Paquito de Rivera and things, I want to go back and listen to and hope for in the future. I want to hear some more Latin type things from him. I mean,
that would be nice. Yeah, he'll probably do it.
He shows here that he has, complete jazz chops, but I want to hear his Latin sort of excursions more too for myself, just to see what his Cuban influences are like. Because
just Latin jazz is so appealing,
like
just in general. Anyway, we like it a lot.
Yeah, so
it's kind of like the I guess the Baroque music of jazz. Yeah, it's just so high energy and positive.
Yeah, very high energy. Right. He shows a lot here. He can do a lot of things. Good taste. He has a nice mix of ballads and also high energy things. And the interplay is good with the trio. I thought the drums are sometimes a little unorthodox with me with what he's doing when he's not using the cymbals or when he chooses to drop out, but it's not to any negative effect. I thought it was good. It's a live date. It must have been an awesome show to be at. So, definitely look out for this guy, Manuel Valera. And I think he's going to have more interesting things coming up.
Right, my favorite album. That was my favorite album of the week, by the way, as far as jazz goes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Of the 3 jazz albums, that was my favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. The next one is probably the most promoted and hyped album of the 3, but I wanted to check it out. And this is Squint on Blue Note by
Julian Lage. Yeah.
Julian Lage, and so this has gotten a lot of attention. And Lage or Lage, I'm not sure I pronounce it. I think he calls him. I've heard him say his own name is Lage.
Maybe it is Lage. Okay, sorry. It's kind of. I've never heard his name.
Well, compared to us, he's a youngster. He's 33. He was pretty much a child prodigy, and had a little documentary film made about him called Jewels at 8. I mean, how many people get a movie made about them in 1996?
I'm not going to want to see that.
No, I don't want to see that.
Precocious, amazingly talented children really
and
bug me.
At age 12, he performed at the 2000 Grammy Awards there.
Yeah. By the way, I should mention he's a Grammy. He's one of those people who are like a Grammy, sort of darling, sort of. He's like every album he puts out is nominated for a Grammy and then doesn't win. Yeah. It's always nominated, but he's this one will be nominated too. We'll be talking about this again in our Grammys episode in December or January, whenever we do it.
So he gets a lot of attention, which normally will make me dislike him right from the start, but not so in the case here.
He's a good guitarist, is what it comes down to.
He's very interesting, and he became a faculty member at Stanford Jazz Workshop in 2003. So I guess that was when he was 15, 16.
Boy.
And then eventually graduated from Berkeley College of Music in 2008. And,
it's nice when you know what you're going to do for the rest of your life at 15, isn't it?
Yeah, and currently he's...
I'm 55. I'm still trying to figure this out.
Currently he's a faculty member at New England Conservatory of Music. And in addition to all these other achievements, he's recorded with some greats, Gary Burton, John Zorn, and Charles Lloyd, as well as many others.
One of my favorites, Charles Lloyd.
Yeah, Charles Lloyd. So getting down to this particular recording, I don't know. To me, I find, this is on Blue Note Records, and they kind of hype it up as exploring the legacy of Blue Note, but I don't really.
It's now run by Don Was. It's a little different these days.
I don't really see it as to me in the tradition of Blue Note. Although I like this recording a lot, but so it's an interesting mix of things, jazz and non-jazz, and so
there's a lot of bluesy kind of things on it as well.
Blues, but I say it's blues rock country, which is interesting because he actually. Lage was classically trained. Let's see, where did he? So at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, he got his classical training. Although I don't think that shows up as far as stylistic influence, but I'm sure it influenced his prodigious technique. So on this recording, it's quite interesting. We start out with this is a mix, mostly original tunes, but there's some some interesting other kind of cover things in here. It begins with a tune titled Etude, a study. This is his own composition. And
it's got a lot of scales.
Yes, it's a study that's very interesting to listen to. It begins with some soft tone lines that outline the melody, and Lage embellishes. He got a lot of chiming chords and a whole plethora of different techniques that he brings in here, because he has all these techniques at his whim, and he moves it around. And sometimes you've got the top register moving, and then other times he's doing sort of more melodic things in the lower register. And it's overall it's a nice balance of technique and style here packaged into this etude. And it shows what he can do with technique and also stylistic balance really well. It goes into track 2 called Booze Blues. This is really a rocking blues, but it's an interesting structure. It's sort of a sandwich. There's 2 12-bar blues choruses, but it's sandwiched with an unusual 6-bar bridge. So he's kind of an unusual construction. And then, that's the repeating sort of compositional figure, and he takes this through the melody, and then when he gets to his solo, he really keeps it rocking, but then he goes outside the chord for some kind of adventure and does some also kind of modal lines over this too. So it is kind of a fun original rocking blues with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, then the third tune is the title track, Squint, which is it's a really rambling intro.
It's kind of squinty, isn't it, this piece? Squinty. It's kind of, yeah.
It's rambling into a fast one-note kind of picking. Then the drums join in, and Lage gets quite jazzy for a bit. The bass kicks in, and they're really off swinging. Sometimes it's kind of bluesy country swing. And Lage is doing a lot of different things in his improvisation. You really you have no idea what he's going to do next. That's his kind of style. I figure, he's off to all sorts of directions. And then there's a kind of rhythmic bass solo here with lines and intervals, and it comes sort of back to that kind of staccato repeated note that Lage established in the beginning. And he comes back in with some really kind of lines on a guitar from outer space. And there's a little drum kind of interlude, and then it's over. Track 4 is called St. Rose, and this is a real rock tune. It's got an opening riff with a catchy melody.
It's got a tremolo effect on it, too.
Yeah, he uses this tremolo a lot, which is really
I like
cool.
Tremolos.
This thick kind of, tune. You used to hear, in 50s and early 60s more, but he grabs that nostalgia and he makes it part of his own sound. And then also on this tune, he adds some really kind of screaming lines with lead guitar and some really chunky chord figures. And then if you get a chance to look at one of his videos of him playing, and you'll see how his technique is a large part of this sound. He uses a guitar pick, but he also uses his fingers, particularly his middle finger, a lot simultaneously. And in this way, he's able to play a lot of different kinds of things all at once, which, enables, it's part of his technique, but also his concept that he's able to do all these different kind of sounds at once and create this unique sound. So after all of these original compositions, then number 5, we jump back in time to the tune Emily, Johnny Mandel and Johnny Mercer tune, which has been recorded by so many people over time. And he, there's a nice jazzy ringing out of the familiar melody on the guitar before the bass and drums join in. And you got a nice kind of slow swinging jazz waltz. And,
I got it's really a gentle kind of sounding.
Gentle waltzy thing. And he dances nicely in his solo. He's got some nice starting lines. There's some nice drum brushwork here that just sort of, I call it spackling. They kind of,
that's an interesting way to describe it, actually. Yeah,
spackling the walls behind him. It's a really nice touch. A great melodic bass solo. I don't know if I mentioned the other players. So here is bassist is Jorge Roder, and on drums Dave King. And so this is really nice effect on this one. And at the end is a kind of pretty cadenza at the end of this tune, with a kind of nice final overtone note right at the end on the guitar. Yeah, so nice treatment of this standard. Track 6 is Familiar Flower, another original. This starts out with some kind of jungle drums and deep bass. And then Lage comes in with some real flourishes and chromatic lines. And his solo
pretty wild. Yeah, the solo is wild.
This one is out there. His solo is like free exploring different harmonies and mixing these speedy, angular lines, also with some bluesy riffs and a variety of strums. So it says Familiar Flower, but I'm not sure I know this flower.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of
familiar. Kind of misnomer title, but it's a fun piece here. 7 is called Day and Age, another original. This has got like a dreamy guitar riff opening, and a slow, even beat starts out the tune. There's a nice melody and harmonies here, and then Lage works some kind of hammering chords and bends to a climax in his solo. Really goes on a journey, and he brings it back to the intro riff. It's got a real nostalgic kind of feel to this tune. I mean, this is original, but it's like one of those kind of tunes like, oh, this sounds so familiar to me, Next tune is called Quiet Like a Fuse, which is a very interesting title. And this has a very pretty guitar opening. And as it develops, this is one of the more interesting tunes on the recording, I thought. There's, in the accompaniment, the bass has this tune is in 4 beats, but the bass has a 3-beat kind of disappearing bass line. So it's in 4 beats, but it's like, dun, dun, dun. So the first 3 beats are the bass. And then the second measure, the bass lays out. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. And so that sort of leaves this huge space for Lage's kind of guitar weaving. And then his guitar sound here is really, the tone is superb. And so it goes through this passage with this sort of, bass prodding of that. And then there's kind of a contrasting, uplifting chorus. And then when later Lage comes in, he does some really bending, weeping like notes that he really lets hang. And then later that bass comes in, and then it's sort of expanded. Instead of the 3 beats, it goes to 4 and extends to the next measure into 5 beats, so hitting the downbeat on the next measure. And I don't know if this is planned or that they just felt this out, but I thought this piece is really kind of intriguing in the structure of it, and gives him lots of space to work before they come back to that original kind of idea. And interesting title, Quiet Like a Fuse. Track 9 is called Short Form. Oh, this is a really long form piece. I'm not quite sure about this one. It's got another attractive guitar intro, and then the tune mixes really pretty melody, but it also has this sort of angst or uneasiness in it, and it's built over this kind of like an implied 8-beat structure. If you listen to what happens in sort of the way the beats are divided, it seems to go through 8, but not every single time. And this is long and well developed. There's a lot of subtle playing here, and he also incorporates a lot of nice muted strumming sections into here. So this is a kind of subdued piece amongst this program. He really holds back here, but I found it kind of intriguing. And then track 10 is called Twilight Surfer, kind of a strange title. when it starts out, I thought the intro riff is really sort of like a John Lee Hooker kind of thing. But then right after that, the tune goes into a bit kind of like a country like feel. And then I felt like it's sort of like a Southern revival kind of feel with a bounce. And then the drums
like a nice
and bass,
groove to it.
Yeah, the drums and bass eventually work up this real groove. And Lage adds like a lot of punchy lines on this. So this is like a real kind of journey with different influences to it on this original tune.
Yeah, I found the title Twilight Surfer to be sort of evocative, like, getting in the last waves before the sun sets.
Yeah.
Kind of like that sort of red sky, and you're kind of getting those last waves. And it kind of put me in a good place. I like this whole track.
This is a good tune. And closes out the album with something kind of interesting. Now, this is Call of the Canyon by, the tune was composed by Billy Hill, but this goes back to Gene Autry, 1940 movie Melody Ranch. And so it's kind of a nostalgic out west lullaby to end things. And Lage treats it pretty gently. He brings in a little bit of blues feeling in spots, but then as he's, sort of saying goodbye, he throws in these sort of effortless, very quiet, fast runs that are sort of, sprinkling technique over here. And then when he comes back to the melody at the end, he shows some nice muting technique on his playing in the strings. So it's sort of a nice sort of good night kiss sort of to the album. To the listener's ears. Yeah, overall, I thought, it's hard to say this is, blue note jazz, but it's its own thing, really. Yeah, it's his own thing. It's his style. It's an interesting mix of influences. There's a rock influence, also jazz, blues, country.
It's an album of contrast. Really.
He has a really amazing technique and creative spirit. I thought, the tunes have structure, but not too much, because I think he likes this freedom, because he wants to and is able to do anything and go anywhere he feels, sort of, at any turn. So you get it, but you also get a sense that, that's the structure that, makes him show his strengths. And like a cat, he always lands on his feet. I, get the feeling of it. So, enjoyable recording. And, his style is really, really unique. And his technique is also so, it's very fun to listen to.
Yeah, like falling on your feet in Italian, the term is cadere in piedi. And one interesting thing about Italian culture is when we think of someone as falling on their feet, we think they were lucky. But the Italians consider falling on your feet to be a skill. Like some people can have this like special skill of being able to do that. I guess like they're a cat. They think about it differently. And I kind of guess Julian Lage is kind of probably like that. He's got that falling on his feet skill.
Yeah, I get the feeling, he was a prodigy and has played his whole life, and that whatever he plays he's going to be able to, that's what you find with, great jazz musicians. Like there are no mistakes. There's just, the ways to resolve whatever you play.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, this guy was a prodigy, but the thing is, he seems to have, developed a musical voice. He has something to say. It's not like he's just like, there's content to his playing as well. So he's got like some kind of sort of context that he's playing. And we don't know what it is, but
he likes to put himself in this sort of situation where he can go in any direction. And then the joy of it is just seeing what he's going to do and how he's going to land with it. And, the arrangements of the tunes and also the style of, his sort of compatriots in this thing are set up that way. And that all works to his style very well. So you get that, sort of, it's not improvisation in just creating the line itself, but as far as, what's going to happen next in the overall structure, there's a bigger question here. And he seems to be able to answer that all the time in these sort of structures that are left open to further possibilities. And yeah, it's quite attractive. And, he's up to the challenge all the time with that. So yeah, a lot of fun. And, what's this guy going to do next? How can he top this kind of stuff? I don't know, but
it'll be different. Whatever he does, it always is. Yeah, come up with some new project.
Thoroughly enjoyable.
I liked it.
As much as I like this, and I like the previous recording, the final recording, and why I saved it for last, is the one that I actually enjoyed the most of the three. And even more so because I had no idea what I was getting into when I picked this one. And I just picked it because I didn't know anything about this artist. And this is alto saxophonist hailing from the UK. UK listeners, here's one for you. Ken Stubbs with the album Three Shadows and Four Angels. A great title. Using numbers in the title. And this is on the Cherryk or Cherryk, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it, label. Never heard of it before.
There are a lot of those labels out these days releasing jazz, I've noticed.
And I have a feeling this one is going to go
more power to him, I say.
Completely under the radar. And I just saw it on one.
Well, at least in America, it's on the radar. It might be big in the UK.
It could be. I don't know. Maybe not, since he's a deserter. But
what do you mean by that?
Well, he's in the US now? The UK.
Where is he now?
He's down under, mate. He's in Australia.
Oh, he's in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Stubbs is his first jazz group was called First House. And
do we have any listeners in Australia?
We have one or two. That's about it.
All right. Come on, Australians.
Chime in, yeah.
Get your friends on board.
So he formed his first group, First House, and they recorded for ECM label a couple of times, I guess. And but then he got a lot of attention, and then he went on to record with some other groups. I guess his biggest group in the UK jazz scene was called the Loose Tubes, which is kind of a nice title for a group. But among other people, he's recorded with Mike Gibbs, Kenny Wheeler, John Taylor, an artist I like a lot, Peter Erskine, Gary Husband, Phil Robson, some other players. But then keep moving forward in his career because he was inspired a lot by Ornette Coleman, the great free jazz saxophone player. And then he moved off to Australia. And I guess he's now in New South Wales with his family. And so I had never heard of Ken Stubbs before. I'm not too well versed in jazz in the UK, other than some of the major artists. And so I saw this.
It's a really happening scene, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
looking at the magazines.
Yeah, in the UK.
I don't know about Australia though.
I know some players that have become, more active in the States, but as far as the independent scene in the UK, I don't know so well. So I thought, I'm going to check this out, and I'm glad I did. So on this recording, we've got Stubbs on alto saxophone, piano. I don't know if I can pronounce this. Ivo Neame. Guitar, James Muller.
Yeah, it might just be Neem. Ivo Neem. Neame.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Guitar, James Muller. Bass, Brett Hurst. And drums, Simon Barker. And this is a small release with not a lot of documentation. So I'm going to be guessing on a bit of this here, what's original and what I could confirm otherwise. But I'm going to assume the first one here is original. It's called 2 Ounces of Love. A very short piece, less than 3 minutes. But you're going to get a real sense of Stubbs's saxophone concept and sound. This begins with some really darting sax phrases they outline the sparse melody with the piano and some piano improv here. When Stubbs comes in, he's got some very fluid lines and a really unique tone that can be sweet or a bit harsh. But soon the melody returns and then the tune is over. And it's a really short intro.
It's sort of an intro to the rest of the album. Yeah. And then what comes next?
Next we've got Melancholia. This is a longer term.
This was really beautiful too.
Yeah.
I took to this right. This is one of the tracks that really kind of stood out for me.
Yeah, this one really brought me into this recording. It's a slow ballad with no drums, and that's kind of a feature of this recording. The instrumentation varies, and it's like they considered what they need and don't need on each track, and then they were very economical as to excluding unneeded instruments. So no drums here, and Stubbs plays the melody really delicately over the piano and bass, and we get kind of a really lullaby of a bass solo over the sparse piano. When the sax returns, his phrasing is very interesting. Lots of space, breathy attack sound. He's got a very legato style of playing. It's very pretty. And so this one's a very attractive track. I don't know the origins of it. If it may be an original tune, I'm not sure. But track 3, we got a jazz standard here. Nobody Else But Me. Go back to 1946. Jerome Kern with lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein. I think this comes from the great Broadway tune or musical Showboat. This one, they come in medium swing, no piano on this one. So Stubbs plays the melody, and he goes down in the low register here a bit for some exploration. And he connects some really interesting lines through this one. And he shows a kind of maturity. He's never in too much of a hurry. And even without the piano, though, and in his relaxed kind of solo, he connects the harmonies really well. He can follow the changes of the tune. And then I got a nice bouncy bass solo before Stubbs comes back to the melody. And so he shows that without harmonic support, he can outline the tune, and you don't feel any incompleteness here. You got the full package just with bass drums and sax. And then the first kind of twist and really interesting thing on this recording, other than the general overall playing, track 4 is 3 shadows. We found out that the shadows are for the Man in Black, Johnny Cash. Yeah. And so this is, I assume, sort of original tribute. And then here, the guitar is introduced for the first time, and it's a really thick sounding, 50s style guitar intro. And then the sax enters over this guitar and sort of hints at some bluesy ideas. And then the sax and guitar, they both transition into the second half of the tune, which is the Johnny Cash tune, The Beast in Me.
Yeah.
And
a well-known track.
Yeah, well-known tune. And it's just guitar and sax. And I feel like it's out of reverence for Johnny Cash. They play this very straight. Yeah. There's not a lot of embellishment here. But the mood that's evoked, it's, very much of a tribute, which is an odd tribute, Johnny Cash tribute on a jazz sax album.
Yeah. Well, why not?
Yeah. Why not?
You like him. Why not?
it's done well. And, very nice. And then, after that, we got track 5, For Angels.
This is track 6, right? This is track 6.
Is it 6?
Because I think they count 3 shadows
as separate tracks.
As separate tracks. Yeah.
Oh, okay, could be. So this is Angels, 4 Angels. This is a very interesting one. A mysterious piano intro. Then Stubbs comes in with a slow melody. There's some really interesting chord changes in this tune. It sort of goes from dark to bright, and back. And so you feel your mood being pulled back and forth here. And then the tempo picks up and the intensity in the drums and bass enter. And then the guitar comes in here too, and it doubles the sax melody. There's a really warm-toned, fluid guitar solo for a nice journey. And then the others kind of drop out, and the piano changes the mood for a while before they join back in. And then the piano sort of solos with some interesting rhythmic lines. And then Stubbs comes back in for his own sort of pensive solo with a really great tone, with a fun exploration. So I really enjoyed this tune. I assume it's original by him, For Angels. The next track is called In Orilla del Mundo. This is a tune that I think was, in the jazz world, was kind of made well known by Charlie Haydn. The composer is Martin Rojas. It's a slow ballad. This one has piano, bass, and sax, but no drums. And Stubbs treats the melody very tenderly. There's a gentle piano solo with sort of interesting interval figures and runs. And then Stubbs comes back in for a solo that matches that mood until a really graceful end. So it's a nice treatment of this tune. Then the next track is an old standard from the 30s called Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams. And this is sax, drums, and bass, no piano. You get a very slow opening that kind of picks up into a loping swing. And Stubbs' solo is relaxed and swinging with kind of occasional weaves outside of the chords, but the overall structure of his solo is really nicely composed. And then there's a bass solo where Stubbs stays in because there's no piano here. He adds the backing kind of phrases to the solo, and then back to the melody, and they trade off some fours with the drums. Then we've got a tune called Unity Village, which I think is a Pat Metheny tune. And got a drums and bass intro here. The piano is back with some nice lines behind the sax melody. And this tune has got an even beat. It's not a swing. And Stubbs plays a solo that sort of, he mixes these descending lines with some exploration of lower register. And then the beat kind of stops and the piano has a solo with some repeated figures in the left hand and moves around a lot more freely. And we get a bass solo and some soft drumming. And then finally they return to the melody. And then to close out the album, we've got a jazz standard, For Heaven's Sake, which many people may know is recorded by Billie Holiday. The tune goes back to around 1948. We got a bass intro. Sax and drums kind of come in softly with this slowed sax melody. There's no piano on this tune. And Stubbs uses really long legato lines in his solo, but he keeps enough space for the tune to really breathe. And there's a really nice taste and treatment of the tune right to the end. And if you listen to this one, when you get to the end, right before the kind of final resolving of the final chord, there's this like nice overtone, a tension that he gets, occasionally here on the sax, this sort of kind of overtone that comes out of the reed. And here it's right there going to the final chord. So I just thought it was, sort of nice final cadenza to this recording. And so I really enjoyed this recording a lot. And it's my first time hearing Stubbs, but I liked his playing a lot. Last week
he's got that kind of, even that breathy attack that that we all like from like Stan. Guess that kind of then the sound appears after you hear the breath first. It's really nice.
Yeah, he has a obvious modern influence, but it never detracts from his sort of melodic nature. When he gets modern, he uses a lot of sort of false fingerings. So he gets this kind of double kind of tone with different fingerings mixed in with his things. But he always stays really melodic, and his solo structures are very logical, and he keeps them, sort of with the composition, so that even when the piano is not there, he's really easy to follow his, harmonic sort of journeys. This recording has an interesting mix of material. I mean, even Johnny Cash with these standards and things. And I thought the arrangements are nice, but they're really also relaxed too. These guys are really, they're familiar enough with each other, so they sound really comfortable, and good interplay between the musicians. And so I felt like, even though I've never heard of this guy, Stubbs, however he's developed his jazz style in the UK and went down under, he's got a real mature style, a really unique tone, and an approach to the sax. And he's got some musicians that understand what he's doing, and they work really well together. And I just keep listening to this one over and over this week. So it was really a nice gem for me to find in here.
Yeah, it was enjoyable for me too. These 3 albums were pretty up. Actually, all of the record. This is a rare week where we liked everything we. Yeah. Well, it's not so rare really, but we really liked everything we heard. It kind of, put a little
I guess it was
step this week.
It was a rare surprise because like normally.
New music was discovered, and it was all good, and that's always a good feeling.
I'm not going to pick something that I can't say something good about, but especially
I'm always going to. I will pick like you. I've already done this. I pick artists that I like, and sometimes I don't really like the outcome, but that's okay because I still like the artist. I'm always looking for something good in it,
Yeah, or like if I'm forced to comment on like things that other people have swooned about, and I think this is like come on, the Emperor's New Clothes or something like that.
What do you like about this? Yeah, there's a lot of Emperor's New Clothes stuff going on right about now. Of course there is,
yeah. But this one, I mean, especially because I kind of went out on a limb on this one. I just saw it on this obscure page, and I was like, well, I have no idea. I mean, the Lage one, Julian Lage, I mean, I guess that was hyped, so I was hoping I would like it, so I wouldn't have to say anything negative about it. But I really did like it. And
I liked it too. Yeah.
The Valera, I didn't know about. I had heard his name and seen, and I've heard him played as a sideman. But I was pleasantly surprised with his individual recording. But the Stubbs was sort of out from left field. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to think about this, but let's include this anyway. So I was really happy. And I'm, hey, if jazz is coming out of Australia at this level too, then I think, that's just fabulous. So
yeah,
it's great. Yeah.
Okay. And so there we are.
I think this whole program is, I think, one of the features of this week, almost everything is really accessible. Even if you're not a classical fan or a jazz fan.
So we're going to recommend that you listen to everything on that list. Put aside some time, and you deserve it. It's good stuff.
In a diehard way, I think you could play this. You could call mom out of the kitchen, sit down on the sofa. Uncle Eddie. Bring him in. Everyone's going to like this mix that we've got this week. I think this is
Uncle Eddie. Hey.
Yeah.
Are we related? Because I have an Uncle Eddie too. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't think I do. I might not. Yeah.
But I think you could. I think you could play this playlist for almost everyone in the family and your friends at a party. This week is
even those sour pusses who don't like music, they'll start liking it.
Yeah.
Now.
I mean, this is a really accessible week. I think all of the commonality of all this classical and jazz is that they really hit a theme of resonance that almost everyone's going to appreciate. And that's what makes it a great playlist week. So check out that Diese playlist.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, so as mentioned in the beginning of the episode, please do take a minute, comment, like, subscribe, send us some feedback. Adult Music Podcast, all one word.
5-star review, please.
5-star review on Apple Podcasts or any other ones you're listening to. Yeah, and
well, 5-star rating. You don't review us if you like, but 5-star rating. Just click those 5 stars. It really does help us
too. I mean, it takes a couple of minutes. We've got.
You see, I don't. But the thing is, I don't write reviews because I feel like I'm doing work. So I don't want people. I don't want them to feel like they have to do work for us. But you can help if you want to help us that way. We would appreciate it. Let's just say that.
Just move that index finger. Stop picking your nose and press the mouse.
When I buy something, people say, "Rate your, what was your, please leave a review of how this went." I'm like, "No, you're gonna pay me for that? No, I'm not gonna do that."
Yeah, I guess so.
I know. But it's kind of like some people like doing that. So please write us a review if you can. A good one.
Yeah, or write to us personally. We'll be sure to respond.
Write to us personally. We got a nice letter this week, actually.
Yes, we did from a listener. One of our friends in Japan.
Yeah. So that was nice. It was nice to hear from him. Anyone else, please? Please feel free.
That's right. So we're going to have another regular episode. I guess it will be cause to celebrate for episode 20.
Oh, boy.
Coming up.
You got to go to the liquor store.
Yeah, I'm always going to the liquor store.
I think episode 25 is more worth celebrating. That's a kind of a big one. 25 is like quarter of the way to 100, so.
I guess. I wonder why
20 is just another 10,
I don't have any money in my wallet. It's always, I'm going to the liquor store all the time. But
yeah, there is that.
All right. Well, 25, yeah. So we're going to have, 20 will be coming up. And listen to 20 because there'll also be a next interview coming up.
Yeah, we have another interview coming up.
That's right.
Not this Friday, the next Friday after that.
Friday. And this will be in the classical domain.
Yeah.
And you want to hear this if you want to be on the cutting edge of classical music.
And American classical music especially.
Classical music, that's right. And you're going to hear it first on adult music. Nowhere else.
You'll only hear it on adult music.
You'll only hear it on adult music. Yeah, first and only. So,
we'll tell you more about that next week. So
yeah, be ready for that. Get up for that. And if you haven't heard the Mike Ladone interview, go back and check that out. You're going to want to hear that album because it's all your fault. If you don't, if you do, it's all your fault too.
And if you do, it's all your fault anyway.
That's right.
It's a really great album.
All right. So thanks for staying with us to the end of this episode 19.
Well, you're welcome. I wasn't sure I was going to make it.
You were going to make it. Yeah, I was going to make it because
I'm still here.
I liked all these tracks. But to our listeners, episode 19 of Adult Music, the podcast with the music for the mature mind. And we'll be with you again next week for episode 20 and hints of interview number 2 to be released the following Friday. And more things to come. Interview 3 is already done. And that'll be coming out next month. Boy, there's so many things going on, Mike. It's hard to know what's going to come next.
Yeah, I personally can't wait, though.
I'm ready, and I hope our listeners are too. So have a good week, and we'll see you again next time.